Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Construction Chamber says prices of residential properties easing as the economic situation improves in the country, and Ghana's industrial sector rebounds with 3.2% growth in first quarter of 2026 despite sharp water and waste declines. Plus, World Bank ready to provide some $100 billion to counter economic impact of Middle East conflict. I am Michael Obodu. Details of these and many other stories coming up shortly. Do stay. Thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story, and the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry says prices of residential properties are beginning to show signs of easing following improvements in the country's macroeconomic environment. The chamber says declining inflation, relative exchange rate stability, and lower interest rates are helping to reduce some of the cost pressures that have driven up pricing in recent years. The cost of housing in Ghana has remained a major concern for many prospective homeowners over the past few years, with developers citing high construction costs, currency depreciation, and elevated financing charges as key drivers of rising property prices. But the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry says recent improvements in the economy are beginning to create conditions for a gradual correction in the housing market. According to the chamber, the relative stability of the cedi, easing inflationary pressures, and improved access to financing have helped moderate the cost of key building materials and reduced uncertainty for developers. Chief Executive Officer of the chamber, Emmanuel Cherry, says while the decline in prices is still marginal, it marks an important shift after years of sustained increases.
The government economic policy is the one leading the chart now. So therefore, what we can say now is today is affecting positively the industry perspective entirely.
The chamber, however, cautioned that a significant reduction in house prices is unlikely in the short term due to the high cost of land acquisition, infrastructure development, and imported construction inputs. It says sustained economic stability and targeted policy interventions will be required to make housing more affordable for a larger segment of the population.
If the forests move up, the housing commodity also move up. If it stabilizes, it stabilizes. If it comes down, that is where they start pricing within the cedi to the dollar. So at times, if you compare to the dollar to cedi, you see that it has reduced as compared to the previous. So as we speak today, most of the housing products or commodities have reduced drastically.
So you heard the Emmanuel Cherry. He is the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry, and in that report. Meanwhile, Ghana's industrial sector experienced a notable turnaround in the first quarter of 2026, with the growth rate climbing to 3.2% from the 1.9% recorded in the first quarter of 2025. This performance boost was reflected in both quarter-on-quarter, which grew by 2.9%, and year-on-year, which also grew by 3.2%. The following 3 Business News Desk report has more.
Fueled by robust activity within the manufacturing, mining and quarrying, and electricity and gas segments. However, the broader recovery was partially weighed down by a 6.4% contraction in crude petroleum and natural gas extraction. Sustaining this positive momentum will require steady infrastructure upgrades, continued capital investment, and heightened production efficiency across the leading sectors. In stark contrast to the thriving segment, the water supply, sewage and waste management sector suffered severe setbacks, plummeting by 19.1% quarter-on-quarter and 1.3% year-on-year. The dramatic slump has prompted urgent calls for government intervention. Policymakers and industry leaders are being urged to thoroughly investigate the root causes of the decline and deploy targeted strategies to salvage the sector. Addressing these operational inefficiencies and driving new investment into public utilities will be critical to stabilizing service delivery and ensuring a more balanced industrial expansion moving forward.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Away from that, the World Bank says it is prepared to provide up to $100 billion in support for countries affected by the economic fallout from the conflict in the Middle East. The announcement comes as the institution warns that the crisis could push global growth to its weakest pace since the COVID-19 pandemic, driven by rising energy prices, higher inflation, and increased borrowing costs. According to the World Bank's latest Global Economic Prospects report, global growth is expected to slow to 2.5% in 2026, down from 2.9% last year, making it the weakest pace of expansion since the onset of COVID-19. A key concern is the impact on energy markets following disruptions to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a major route for global oil supplies. The World Bank expects Brent crude oil prices to average around $94 a barrel this year, while fertilizer costs are also projected to rise, increasing pressure on food prices around the world. As a result, global inflation is forecast to climb to 4%, up from 3.3% in 2025. The report warns that developing economies will be hit hardest, with growth expected to slow to 3.6% this year. In sub-Saharan Africa, countries are expected to face rising inflationary pressures, particularly through higher food prices linked to fertilizer shortages and increased production costs. To help countries respond, the World Bank says it is immediately making between $50 and $60 billion available through existing financing arrangements, including pre-arranged emergency funds. The institution says support could be scaled up to as much as $100 billion over the next 15 months if the conflict and its economic consequences persist. The World Bank is urging governments to strengthen economic reforms, improve fiscal resilience, and attract private investment to support growth and job creation. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, Ghana's Finance Minister of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Elizabeth Ofusue-Jare, has issued a sharp warning over the persistent rise of non-tariff barriers, describing them as the most stubborn obstacle holding back economic integration and inflating business costs across West Africa. Speaking at the 5th joint meeting of ECOWAS Ministers of Trade and Industry in Accra, the minister revealed that these regulatory and administrative bottlenecks quietly tack an estimated 15 to 20% onto the cost of cross-border trade. Madame Ofusue-Jare called for increased trade among countries on the continent.
I have become a champion of non-tariff barrier. I keep on saying that I am not scared of tariff barriers, because if the tariff is $5, you can incorporate it in your cost of production and then it's easier. But non-tariff barrier has become a monster for all of us, and we are dealing with it today. If we need to talk about harmonization, we need our borders to be seamless. When somebody says, let's trade on Africa Continental Free Trade Area, what the person is saying that I'm coming to sell to you, but I close my border to you. That is not the way to go. Because in one breath, they say the corn is too yellow. When you produce a yellow corn, then they say the yellow is not the yellow we are talking about. These are the barriers that is not helping us. Africa needs to trade among Africans. West Africa needs to trade among itself. It is the only way to go. You know, we trade among ourselves about just 10%. The EU is doing about 60%. We must up our game. And this is the meeting to check that, because this meeting is a meeting for ministers for trade and industry. We have what it takes to take the decision.
You heard the Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Elizabeth Ofusue-Jare, bringing an end to today's edition of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more stories, kindly check out our website at 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please stay safe.